guys, I forgot last week when I said, that camera looks crooked. Give me a second. Okay, we're calling it good. It's probably still a mess, but we're calling it good. So last week I said I would see you on Friday. Forgetting I planned that August was going to be a writing month with only one video a week. Totally forgot about it. Almost came on and had either a super short video or something to say, hey, sorry. And I was like, no, I need to spend that time actually writing. So I've gotten a lot done, not as much as I wanted to, and yet more than I thought I needed to. So it's kind of weird. I wanted to be further along in the additions process than I am, but I made more additions than I planned that seemed to me like much more realistic for the story. And so, we're doing things. So yeah, Dying to Read is the new name, and we have a partial cover I sent out to my newsletter. I'll stick up the continuing partial cover. The red chair wasn't on the one I sent out to my newsletter, but the red chair I just got yesterday. So Laura needs to hurry up and get me a couple more chairs. And she's leaving tonight, I guess it will be once this goes up. So who knows if I will get anything before next week. I need at least 2 more chairs, at least. I would really like 3 more, but I don't want to just like crowd the cover, but there needs to be a lot of chairs on this cover. And I'm not going to put all 12. That would be ridiculous. But it's kind of important. So it's like, I don't know what to do. But anyway, so that's fun. But I need to get that all, I've got people editing and everything as I'm going so that when it's time to release, it's done and it's ready to go and I don't have to wait, because I really want this released before October 1st, because that's when a spin-off story comes out in Booked for Love, which is an anthology of, they're really short stories. They're not supposed to be over 12,000 words, although some of them have gone over. Mine definitely went to like 15. Still a short story word count, but yeah, I don't call that a novella. I'm old school. Went back in 2012 when I looked it up, a short story went up to 20,000 words, and a novella didn't start until like 25,000 words, and it went up to 50 unless you were writing mystery. That was different. It was lots of things, and Writer's Digest is where I got all the numbers, and you can still find it on their website if you look hard enough. It's hard to find, but it is still findable. So, they're short stories, stretching it maybe to call them novelettes, but I'm like, come on. So anyway, lots of fun. But last week, that poor fan is just like, it sounded like it was whimpering. It's going so slow that it's like when it oscillates, it's kind of going almost like a sprinkler. Just doesn't like the end at all. It's pretty funny. But anyway, so last week I mentioned that I forgot to talk about And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Fredrik Backman. Guys, this is a super, super short novella, and I'm going to get a physical copy. I listened to it on audio. It was only a couple of hours, 2.5 hours maybe. No more than 3 for sure. Just really super short audio. And it was beautiful and heartbreaking and beautiful and just like so many things. So we have a man who knows that he has dementia. But a lot of it is from his perspective, which makes it unreliable, because we know his mind isn't remembering things right. He's not in the right decades sometimes. Other times he totally is. It's very confusing for him and for others around him. They're trying to, at the beginning, his grandson doesn't really understand what's happening. And by the end, his grandson and his son are helping him through it. And it's a journey through dementia. You get to see this man's life from way back in the beginning, all through his fatherhood, his grandfatherhood, the changes he made, the mistakes that he made, the way he misses his wife so much, all the things. It's absolutely beautiful, and it is heartrending. At the end of that thing, I literally, and I can't remember the last time I did this, because I don't cry. I'm not really a crier. And, you know, some people kind of think I'm a cold-hearted, unmentionable word, but I'm not a crier. I never have been. And some of it is how I grew up, the family I grew up in. You know, my parents weren't really criers, and they weren't really big on emotions. And so I'm sure that played into it, but I think an awful lot of it is, you know, I just got it from them too. It's a family trait too, you know, so it's kind of difficult. Neville's going to enjoy his bone that Mom got him, so it'll get noisy. Sorry. So, you know, there's all the things, right? I sobbed. I broke down and just sat out here and sobbed at the end of that thing. So if you need something to release emotions, read the book. There's that. Forget the rest of it. It's short enough that you can deal with it. Just read the book. But on the other hand, it was so very, very, very beautiful. And it's, in a weird way, it was encouraging. Because, you know, dealing with dementia, you know, we don't see a lot of main characters with dementia in older fiction. I don't think I made it really clear what I meant when I was talking about that, and, you know, what books are there. It's not that it was never mentioned that people had dementia. No, they didn't use that word. They often said they got childish or they went senile or insert all the things here. But you don't really, they're more mentioned in passing, or they're people close to the main characters. You don't really get them as main characters like we're getting right now. And I love the fact that we're getting them as full-fledged characters that don't just serve the other people in the story, but they are an important part of the story, and without them the story wouldn't be the story. That's really what I'm talking about. And this was another one that this story wouldn't exist if this man did not have dementia. It couldn't exist. That would mean nothing. And so it just, it's such a beautiful, beautiful, horrible story. Because any story with dementia has to have that horrible element. It just has to. And yeah. One of the fun conversations is that both the grandfather and the grandson are very mathematically minded, and the father of the boy, son of the grandfather, you know, the other man, is much more word oriented, and the grandma was a little more like the son, not grandson. So they understood each other, but the grandfather never understood his son. They didn't make. He's really going to town. I'm so sorry. I'm not going to take it away though. I can't. So anyway, but there's kind of like they don't understand each other. The grandson and the grandfather are very numbers oriented and everything, but the mother / wife had faith. And what I thought was really interesting is that in this one, near the end, you kind of get a feeling like this guy might be understanding in his, you know, mentally altered state, something he couldn't understand when he was in full faculties. It's almost like he needed to lose some of the logic side of him so that he could accept goodness. So that he could accept. And so he's talking about, you know, the grandson's like, well, you know, Grandma believed in God, but you don't. And he's like, well, you know. And so it was kind of neat because the author isn't giving you a Christian book. This is not a Christian book. But I like the fact that he showed that this could be something that could happen in dementia. And it makes sense to me. My brain can process how taking away something that you've clung to, science, logic, etc., and that being your God, and when you start losing connection with that, then it might open you to really seeing who God actually is. And I like that he put it in there, and he didn't make it definitive, and he didn't turn it into a Christian novel. I don't know what this guy believes, but I like the fact that it was put in there as this is a possibility of something that might happen in people's thoughts. I can't believe how much I enjoyed it. It's a little disjointed, and it needs to be. And but you really do get his history from about around the time he met his wife, through their marriage, through their parenting, through child, the grandchildren, grandchild anyway. And it's just, it was beautiful. I loved it. I expected I would like it because I really did love A Man Called Ove. And I haven't read anything else by Bachman. I don't know if I will like everything the guy wrote, but I sure did like this one. I gave, and every morning the way home gets longer and longer. I gave it 5 stars unapologetically. It's one of those that if I could give it 6, I probably would, just because it was such beautifully done. He didn't add tons of words. He used every word he needed for the story, and not one more or less. And I really did like that. Also, another book dealing with dementia. I did finish The Color of Home. It is really good. Kit Tassella. I gave this 4 stars. I think it's probably closer to like 4 1/4. There were just a few little minor things that I thought could have been slightly stronger, and I don't know if it's fair that I wanted it to be stronger, but we'll get to that. So this one, we have Audrey, and it's kind of a complicated family story. So her dad was raised by his aunt and uncle, and when Audrey was, I think, 16, either 13 or 16, one of the two, her dad was across the street, or he went across the street to do this. I don't remember, but I feel like the dad was working over there. There was an inn across the street from his aunt and uncle's house, and the barn caught fire. He went over to try to help the animals get out and everything, and a beam fell and he died. So, and that place has just been falling apart ever since. Well, she's been reluctant to come back to the aunt and uncle's house, for one thing, but she's also felt like she had to let go of things that she couldn't completely control. She is an interior designer in San Francisco. My goodness, he is just, I am so sorry. But it's distracting for me, but oh well. But she has been planning to go help her aunt and uncle, great aunt and uncle, to like cull the house, get all the extra stuff out of it, get it a fresh coat of paint where it needs it, clean up everything, because the great uncle has dementia. He's in pretty advanced stages now. He still remembers his wife, but he doesn't always remember Audrey. But for the most part, he does once she's been there for a little bit. But it's getting difficult, and when things get out of whack at all, he gets very agitated. It becomes really concerning. So they're going to move into a retirement home where he can have some assisted living things, so that when things get worse, it's already familiar, they're hoping. And so they've got to sell this place, but to sell it, they got to get ready. So Audrey is coming to help. And that's like the premise of the thing. But when Audrey gets there, her job back in San Francisco looks iffy. She looks like she might need to be staying a little longer than she intended. And since the iffy job means she doesn't need to come back, she gets a job locally and starts making friends. And she like integrates herself into the community while she's helping with all this stuff. And then it really starts peeling layers off of her own grief, the things she hasn't dealt with, the things that she needs answers to, the questions the community has. And it's just like one thing after another. And finally, you know, when it all boils down to it, Audrey has to make some difficult choices, make some bad choices, all the things. I loved it. The dementia, again, I'm keeping this one in my dementia pile because this will be very encouraging to read, because her uncle isn't one of the, he's, as a general rule, he's not one of the ones who gets ugly. He gets agitated, but he doesn't, you know, and I think I'm going to need to read all kinds, right? So I'm going to be keeping it. My only quibble really with it, there's for one thing, this is women's fiction. This isn't, I would not even call this romantic women's fiction. There is a slight romantic thread near the end of the book. It has to be there to help with her healing, and that's all I can say without being spoilery. But it wouldn't have worked as well if it hadn't been. This raises stakes and give it whatever. But this isn't the point of the story. This little romantic thread that just barely shows up at the end. You get hints of it along the way, but you're not really dealing with it. That is all the romance there is. It's not what it's about. It's just not what the story's about. So there's that. My only quibble, my only slight little quibble, and it's not a strong one, but it was enough for me to pull most of a star. There were times where the faith threads in here got what I'm going to call blurry. I don't need things to always be in your face, overt, slap you upside of the head with scripture. Sometimes a gently, delicately woven faith thread has more impact and more punch. And I get that. This time, I felt like it just kind of got blurry instead of was a delicate thread. And that was disappointing to me. Is it my problem? Probably. But that's what it was. I'm definitely reading the next book. She just had another one come out. Something writerly, that's all I know. It's got a typewriter, I think, on the cover and a window, and it's pretty, and I want to read it. But, you know, again, it's a minor, it's just, I might as well not even try to have a coherent thought, because he is just chewing my thoughts up and spitting them out with that. So anyway, Color of Home, 4.25 stars. Loved it. Highly recommend it. And the characters are so well drawn, and she knows when to give us a little more description and when to pull back. I don't know if Kit Tassello herself is an interior designer, but the character is, and I felt like the descriptions did that. They knew where to go all out, give a huge splash of color, and when to pull back, when to edit, when to give it, you know, just something, a place for your eye to rest, if you will. I thought she did that really, really, really well. So there's that. Then that was one of my passport to summer reading. That was Home, obviously. So for books on the cover, I read Sarah Monzen's Hearts in Circulation. This one I also gave 4.25 stars to. And guys, I absolutely love the characters and this story. That's really important. So we have Levi, who is a 6'7" giant of a guy who has some serious sensory processing issues. And then you have Haley. I want to call her Holly for reasons that make no sense. You have Haley, who is, this is definitely one of those big little tropes. She's this tiny little thing. And she had a liver transplant as a young girl. And she's kind of been spending her life ever since trying to pay that liver forward, as if you can make up for or pay for what was done for you. And yeah, that she's tried to convince herself that she just wants to remind herself to be grateful and all the things, but really she's trying to pay it back instead of forward, right? And so there's a whole thing. Their local library, which you meet the other characters in an overdue match. In this one, they get the bookmobile, and she's supposed to be tootling all over the, you know, countryside, taking this bookmobile to the places that don't have access to the library in her town. Oh, brother. So anyway, but on her maiden voyage, she gets close to this Turkey Gap. I love the name of it. They're in Tennessee. It gets close to Turkey Gap, and it dies. And she calls a tow truck with the last bars that she can possibly find. At that point, or very soon after, a rock slide closes her in. She can't get out of here now. And they've got to fix this, get things going. It's going to be a couple of weeks. And so here is where I'm going to give everything I can give, and then I'm going to get into a little bit of spoileriness. So, but first, you basically have a guy who doesn't handle people well because the noise, there's just so much that sends him, he just doesn't handle it. So he's moved here to get away from people. And one of the very funniest scenes is that she, seeing that he is uncomfortable talking to her, assumes that he's shy, and so she's going to fill the conversation herself and just carry it for him so that he doesn't have to, bless his heart and hers. So that was a pretty funny scene, because you as the reader know exactly what's going on, and she doesn't at first. So bless her. But the story kind of goes from there. They learn to understand each other. She is someone who, for the most part, she doesn't actually bother him once she knows what does bother him. You know, he can enjoy being around her. There's so many things about her that just fit with him. And she listens, and it's all very beautiful. It's a he falls fast and first kind of thing. But I don't know, there's something reasonable to me about how this all happens, because they're both attracted. That happens often. He's never been attracted to a particular woman before. And so this is very new and uncomfortable and delightful for him all at once. He's a very bookish man. He loves books. He knows books. And so they're doing well. And while he's trying to interact with her at first, he writes a note, which she writes back. And then it becomes semi-epistolary at times, where they work through this kind of thing. He learns to flirt through notes. It's just very adorable and lovely. And I love what she did. So, in romance, you have the third act breakup kind of thing, where something happens that's going to tear them apart if they don't get them back together. And what I loved in this one is that it has nothing to do with a misunderstanding. It has nothing to do, well, I guess you could stretch it into a misunderstanding, but not between them. There's all the things that we're used to seeing, where that's it, it's over, whatever. That's not it. She never expected to let anything go anywhere because of her liver and all the things that go with it. And he's just like, I'm not giving up on us like that. So there's never really that actual, he's going to end up knocking that over. He's just like carrying this, following the bone all over the place while he's gnawing. So when the camera shakes, that's why. But so there's all of that, and it just has a very satisfying, understandable, lovely ending. I was so glad she didn't do something very cliche in here. That was great. It would have been a bit much, and I love the fact that it just didn't happen. That was great. Another thing that is really fun about her, he is just such a neat and well-developed character. Okay, there's him. Haley is a hoot. She gives names to, this bookmobile, this is Appalachia, Tennessee. She calls it Cletus. Is that not the best name for an Appalachian bookmobile ever? Oh my gravy. I was just like, that is genius. So I loved that. And there's this box of kittens. She names them. It's hilarious. And him, I'm not a swoony kind of person. I don't do the swoonness. But I had this mother moment for this guy. When this guy is dealing with these kittens, my heart, I wanted to hug. I don't hug people. I wanted to hug him because seriously, oh my gravy. It was just adorable. And, you know, I just was like, yes, you are a great and a wonderful man, and you will be a wonderful man for her. This is going to be awesome. So there's all of that. There's also a little girl. I think her name might be Sadie, but I could be remembering wrong. She has a pig with a tutu. Which is really funny because I actually have a book with a similar issue. But he and his friend this little girl thinks they're going to go find truffles because she read about it somewhere. Oh my gravy, it's hilarious. She is such a delightful child. I had so much fun with that kid. She was my favorite character by far, even more than them. She was just awesome. So there was that. Okay. Spoileriness comes now, and it comes with the sensuality. So here's the deal. The world knows I'm a prude, and I'm not going to apologize for it. But the fact of the matter is, I could be overreacting because of that. And I do want to put that out there. But in this, things are very sensual in a lot of places, actually. We have a lot of physical interactions that go far beyond what I would find comfortable. There's that. Including, and it is a big spoiler, but it's not, but it is, but it's not. So here's the deal. There is a scene, they are both afraid of storms. His has to do with sensory things. She learned that that a weighted blanket would be great. They don't have a weighted blanket, so she becomes the weighted blanket and drapes herself over him on the bed. And I'm just picturing, now I know he's terrified, okay? And he's trying to deal with stuff. And this is something that will help. I get that. But I also get that once he starts coming out of his terror and starts calming down because he's got this weight that will help that, this is going to be very difficult for most men. And it's not appropriate because there are other ways to do a very, very, very similar thing without making it... It almost crossed into sexual for me. It was just too much. I didn't like that part. And there were other parts that I was like, yeah. That's the kind of thing that I was uncomfortable with. I have a feeling that I missed innuendo in here because I tend to miss innuendo. It's something I don't catch most of the time. When I catch it, you know it's bad. But, or maybe I only catch the light stuff and I don't even know. I don't know. But, yeah. I suspect there is, but I can't be sure because I just don't know. But it's one of those things I wouldn't... Oh, no, I have to go on. This is even more spoilery. Okay, so when she's in Turkey Gap, she is staying with him in his house, just the two of them. And the first night, day, whatever you want to call it, you know, he calls around and there's really nowhere else for her to go, so she's staying there. That's fine. I understand it. You have to give hospitality. I get that. Had no problem with that first night. But when people came forward and were like, okay, we can take her in now. We're home. We're back. We're doing insert whatever the reason was here. He chose not to even give her the opportunity to make that choice, which I don't think she would have. I think she'd have stayed. Okay, I'm just being honest there. But, and so she was there. They were in the same house, staying with nobody. And it's like, it's just, I'm not comfortable with it. It's not how I see scripture. So there was all of that. But then I could have dealt with it anyway. I could have choked it down. But then his family comes to visit. She shows up to pick up something, and they find out that she was there, living there with him for 2 weeks. There's not a word said about, was that really the wisest decision to make? Did you think that this was okay? It's ignored almost, and you could see it coming up, like it's about to, like someone's really going, but they're finding it too delightful that he has a girlfriend that they're just going to ignore this, and I had a problem with that. Also, one of the most beautiful things in here was him telling her that she had when she's like dealing with this, I've got to make up for what I've been given kind of thing. He was like, this is a really good picture of what salvation is. Jesus, because she feels bad. Someone had to die so that she could live, right? He's like, that's Jesus. I mean, it's not the same. No, they didn't get to choose that they were going to die and give up their liver for you. Okay, it's not a, but you have a concept of it that most of us don't get. And you're still trying to pay back what was done for you, and you can't. You can't with your liver, and you can't with God. And it was a beautiful, beautiful picture, and I loved it. But I did have those problems. This is a very tutti frutti stack. Anyway, so I read those. Then I mentioned I was reading Murder at the Abbey, and I had just gotten started on it, and I wasn't sure where it was going. All that chewing made him thirsty. So I was talking about that last time. I DNF'd it. It got very, very, very much into alternate lifestyles and all the things, the same sex this and that, and it was an agenda. It wasn't just in passing. This is acknowledging that this is part of life. This is not Christian fiction, so I don't expect it to behave in, promote what is biblical and whatnot. I don't expect all that, but when it's clearly promoting something else, then I'm not comfortable. So I DNF'd it and went for Benedict Brown's Marius Quinn, the Czech something conundrum. The Cherkley conundrum. Okay. In this one, Marius and Bella are together when an old girlfriend of Marius's comes up to him on the street and begs him for help. Her boyfriend has not been accused yet, but is suspected of murder at a house out in the middle of nowhere. Or is it in the middle of nowhere? Yeah, it is one of those big manor houses, so I'm calling it nowhere. But, he was suspected. This gal is a tutor who's teaching the house son how to speak Spanish, and she and this head gardener guy were, had this relationship, and now he's gone after a woman has been bludgeoned. She's not dead yet. She dies. And then, she's going to, or it's like, what's going to happen, right? So, and then he disappears. And so he looks very guilty. And she's like, he didn't do it. I know he didn't do it. So, help. Well, they go. And the same Detective Lovecraft who has been there with them before, he is also there. And they're all trying to figure out what's going on. We have the man of the house, his wife, their young son, who is the tutor, tutee, if you will, from the ex-girlfriend. And then you have 3 visitors. These are the primary characters. And somebody has bludgeoned this housemaid person, and then yes, she dies, and at the same time something was stolen. So they're trying to figure out all the things. The 3 visitors there are 2 men and a woman, and they are all artists competing for the lady of the house's patronage. And the man of the house, he is very much, I'm focused on making money, and I don't want to be bothered by all this stuff. All is good, right? And then it just goes through the mystery, and you're trying to figure it out. And here's the deal. I loved the mystery. The mystery was brilliant. I thought I had who it was, and I was heartbroken. I did not want it to be who I thought it was, but I was sure that I knew. and I was wrong, and I was never been so happy to be wrong in my life. I should have seen it coming. It was so obvious in retrospect. But at the time, I really saw my eyes, and I don't even think Brown was pointing us in that direction. It's just where my mind went, and I was really very unhappy about it. So that was the good news. The bad news, okay, so this book I also gave 4 stars to. This was a 4-star week. Except for last week, technically, is when I gave And the Way Home. So that was 5 stars. So don't feel like I can count it. So it's like all 4 stars this week. But it was a solid 4, 4.25. I loved the story. Here's the deal. This is technically a spoiler, but not for the murderer. What I have to share has nothing to do with the murderer. And so if anything, it would make someone look more guilty, possibly. I don't know. But I had a problem with the book, and it took me a while to figure it out. So here the deal is that the wife and the young lady that are visiting, it comes out that they were having a relationship. I don't appreciate that in books, no. But it was done in a way that it's acknowledged, but not pushed. And so I couldn't figure out what was bothering me so much about it, because I was so focused on the fact that this is, and my brain was like, were you thinking that it was like the 20s? There have been this problem since before Sodom in the Bible. Okay, so this is nothing new. I'm not having a problem with the era. Maybe a tiny bit with how accepting Bella was of it, maybe, but maybe not. She's upper echelon, and the higher up you went, really, the more liberal people's minds were about things. So maybe that's not a problem. I don't know, but it wasn't a huge focus. So why am I having such a hard time with it? And, I got to the end of the book, and I knew that Benedict Brown's brother had a same-sex relationship. And so I was like, okay, his brother has just died. And so I thought, well, maybe, he really wanted to. And it turns out that, yes, this is part of, where this came in and everything. And I'm like, so I'm still having trouble. Why am I? And then it hit me. This is where my problem is with this whole thing. Who did it has nothing to do with this part of the story. Any of them could have been guilty. Okay? Just putting that out there. But here's the deal. We have a married woman with a son living with her husband. They are a family. She is having an affair. And I would have been just as upset if it was with a man. That's my problem. That it was glossed over as if it was no big deal-ish because they were 2 women. Instead of the fact that we're glossing over people breaking vows. And there was my problem. And once I got a hold of that, I was like, okay, now I know what my problem is. Then I was fine. Do I like that it's in there? No. But what I dislike about it being in there more is the fact that it's kind of acted like this is okay because reasons. No. You have people breaking marriage vows. If you don't want to be married to your spouse, it's not right to divorce them, but it is also not right to cheat on them. I'm just saying. So that was my problem. And I don't even know how physical this thing got. They were because Brown was very, very, very discreet in even discussing it. As a teen, I would not have got it. It wouldn't have clicked. It was very discreet. Until you get to the author's note where he explains things more and everything. Then I would have figured it out at that point. But it is really very discreet. I was a pretty naive teen, I'll grant you that, but it was pretty discreet. So it's not that, it's just the fact that we're breaking vows. That's what got to me. And that's why I'm going to bring it up again, because I can do this. This is my channel. I can do this. That's why The Scent of Water by Elizabeth Googe doesn't bother me. We have a woman who falls in love with a married man, and she won't let herself even think about it. She continues to treat that husband and wife as the friends that they are, and she and the Lord work through her issues herself. There is no temptation, so to speak, to encourage this guy to break those vows. He has vows. It's not an option for her, and she knows it. But Googe doesn't pretend that people don't do this kind of thing anyway. And the temptation isn't the sin. If she had given in to that temptation, then Googe and I might have been having some trouble. But Googe handled it so well to show just what happened. And she did a similar thing with the rosemary tree, where this woman is just so discontent with her husband until something comes along and really kind of snaps her out of it. And that is such a beautiful story too. But I don't have a problem with the fact that people do have these ideas, are tempted to do things. That's whatever, because this is humanity. It's what happens when they give in. Or do they give in? You know what I mean? What happens when is where my line is drawn. I want to know, is this going to be addressed that this is wrong in some way, somehow? Are we going to acknowledge that it is not right for a married person to carry on with someone outside of their marriage? And that once I figured out that was my problem, I felt a lot better. I know it sounds silly, but I needed to kind of get through that to figure out, all the things. But yeah, so that's what I read. It's been a tough week. There have been some really rough things I had that story. I had the sensuality in Hearts and Circulation. Before all of that, last week I was sobbing over, and then the day gets longer and longer. I had to DNF Murder at the Abbey. And did I read anything else? Color of Home. No, that one, it was so minor compared to these. I feel like I should bump it to 4.5 so I can give it 5 on Goodreads, just because by comparison, there's no problem. But I really do feel like those threads got muddy, so I'm going to leave it. But I don't know. I think I'm going to read this one and this one this week. The Atlas of Untold Stories by Sarah Brunsvold. Gotta have another bookish one. Need another mystery. So, The 10 Teacups. And I still have Island of Stars and The Great Divorce over there. So, that's what I'll be working on this week. How about you? What have you been reading? What do I need to know? I know there's a Harry Potter, some sort of readathon kind of thing. Hogwarts, going back to Hogwarts something. And they're doing like this Marauders map. So I will be probably having a video where I fold the map into my journal. And then when you open it up, you can see the footprints from each prompt to each prompt. I'm going to make this whole fun thing because why not? And I'll talk about the books in there. So I could have another video in the middle of this month somewhere. Not on a Monday, but otherwise I will see you on Monday with what I've read this week, and I hope you have a lovely week. And yeah, this is what I got done, and this is what I'm going to do, and we're going to have a wonderful week. So I'll be back. Pray that I get this book done. I need to get this book done. So thank you so much. Good to hear from you. Please do tell me what I should read and what I've been missing out on, and I'll see you later.